Life is not black and white. We are all used to dividing emotions into good and bad. Now it's time to rethink this theory. It is almost ironic that most of our negative experiences have hidden benefits. For example, researchers have discovered that exposure to a mild stress dosage benefits the overall well-being of the average human. Similarly, society often misunderstands the feeling of regret. With the proper handling of this emotion, it can change our future for the better. Unfortunately, pop culture and professionals recommend piling positive emotions to the brim while jettisoning the negatives. Without a doubt, positive emotions are to be craved, however, not at the expense of the negative. Too much optimism has accompanying traps. The right balance of positivity and negativity helps us learn and unleash our potential and goals. A myriad of research on regret by empirical experts, like social scientists and psychologists, has brought the inner workings of this emotion to the fore. As we will see later in this summary, reclaiming and embracing regret is a straightforward metric of our humanity. Besides, productive utilization of this feeling can make us better humans. However, to remake regret into a beneficial form, it is expedient to divulge its content. An inability to acknowledge a wrong decision may be equal to social stagnancy. Thus, making amends and getting better becomes impossible. Revealing our regrets helps us sidestep the crash course we have intentionally or unintentionally placed ourselves on. This summary will help you unpack and reassess your reservations about regrets. Programming yourself into thinking you have no regrets in life can put a cap on your growth and potential. Hence, stay tuned to become a proficient decision maker, a top performer in your career, and have a better life. Regrets contribute to personal growth. As common as the emotion of regret can be with humans, it has been left mainly without a generic definition. Instead, experts have only been able to give explanations and metaphors. However, the human brain is uniquely different from the brains of other social animals. We have imagination, which allows us to guess what might have happened if we had acted differently in the past. Likewise, we compare what we once had with what we have now and become nostalgic. A denominating bedrock of regret is the ability of humans to tell stories, recall the past, and project into the future. In youth, humans are prone to assert a lack of regret. At this point, they live life to the fullest and often throw their cares to the wind. One midlife crisis trigger is reaching a contemplative and reflective stage, weighing the likely outcomes of life if they had lived differently. Though we would like to live without regrets, and sometimes proudly insist that we have none, this is not really possible, if only because we are mortal. Whenever we cast our minds back to the past, we subconsciously start bugging ourselves with if-only thoughts. If only I had stayed away from that party. If only I had read the night before that exam. If only I had trained for the race a little longer. And the list goes on. There is, however, another side to this coin. After seeing the resultant outcome of some past decisions, we may resort to another counterfactual, at least. For example, I might have finished with a pass, but at least I graduated. The movie was awful, but at least I got to go outside, and the like. No living human is immune from failure, and when one does occur, it triggers one of the two highlighted counterfactuals, if only, or at least. However, studies have revealed that every human experiences more of the if-only counterfactuals. So, what does this say about human behavior? Primarily, regrets that make us feel wrong about a recent outcome of our activity or decision are likely to make us strive for better results in the future. This innate trait has been complicit in the development of humans since the Stone Age. Regret points to areas we care about. George Gallup founded the American Institute of Public Opinion. In 1949, he decided to go on an empirical hunt for American citizens' most significant life mistakes. He was trying to identify if there were any trends underlying the kind of regret plaguing his fellow citizens. The 1949 survey took a random sample of respondents from across the U.S. Unfortunately, the team received invalid data from most of them. However, the second trial by Gallup in 1953 proved more successful. He restructured the question to draw out specific responses. If you could start over, would you live your life differently? Surprisingly, almost all of the answers were negative. Between 1953 and 2019, several surveys were conducted by various teams on the impact of regret on the life satisfaction of humans. Most of these surveys were primarily confined to the United States. Interestingly, many of these studies were conducted on U.S. college campuses, leading to a misleading deduction. Most of the college surveys inferred that respondents' educational choices, the choice of major, institution, or curriculum, were the core of their greatest regret, and rightly so. However, if, for example, they surveyed hospices or a hospital, the predominant responses would relate to lost health and insufficient care. Hence, considering all the flaws of previous regret polls, Daniel H. Pink liaised with a software and data analytics company in 2020 to conduct the American Regret Project. It was the largest and most representative regret survey of the American populace. Besides using the internet and advanced computer technology, the survey question helped identify the what and the why of regrets. If we know what we truly regret, we know what we truly value. If we know what we truly regret, we know what we truly value. With responses from 489 representative adults, the project revealed that the regrets of Americans cut across a broad domain. For example, the survey showed that people regret family relationships, romantic affiliations, education and career, spending and saving habits, and health. Pink then surmised that this broad distribution of regrets across several domains is due to each individual's multiple roles: parent, spouse, boss, child, friend, boss, employee, etc. Identify the area of your life where you have the most regrets and reflect on it to understand your true desires. 4 imposing pillars of the monumental matrix of regret. Regrets are very much like language. After taking a bold step with the American Regret Project, Pink realized the kinship of language and regret. There are no geographical boundaries with internet surveys. Hence, he took the Regret Project globally, calling it the World Regret Survey. Pink compares regret to language because language varies from place to place on Earth, just as it differs from one individual to another. However, when we look beyond the surface variations of regrets from individuals in different geographical locations, they become offshoots of some common deep-rooted structures. Similarly, the 1957 book Syntactic Structures by Noam Chomsky puts forth strong arguments in favor of all human languages built atop a universal framework of rules native to the brain. Pink posits that regret is a human emotion with a universal framework of roots that branches into 4 significant rootlets. After sifting through thousands of entries submitted in response to the World Regret Survey, he came about this deduction. In the survey responses, words and phrases like missed, more time, bad habits, take a chance, explore, and wrong were recurrent. Pink was able to sort them into 4 significant categories. Foundation regrets. Boldness regrets. Moral regrets. Connection regrets. Disappointments are beyond your control. Regrets, on the other hand, are your responsibility. Foundation regrets encapsulate all other surface regrets that concern the basic needs of our existence and what gives life meaning. This, as a rule, involves general well-being, moral, physical, and material condition. When this pillar is well tended, other aspects of our being tend to fall into place. Boldness regrets involve missed opportunities due to fear and insecurity. For example, when we refuse what we want because of self-doubt. With moral regrets, we sometimes find ourselves acting contrary to our principles. It happens when we try to justify and rationalize our wrongdoings despite the protesting voice of our conscience. Finally, connection regrets arise when we fail to maximize the potential of our relationships, be it at work, school, or maybe even with our pets. Paying due attention to the 4 core regrets can lead to a healthy juxtaposition and interplay of your life opportunities and obligations. In this way, your foundational regrets will become the ground for creating stability. In turn, past lack of courage will evolve into an incentive for growth, moral remorse will provoke good deeds, and connection regrets will help you to find love. Use special methods to overcome regret. Failures are inevitable, and regrets are a good indicator of humanity. However, like any tool, regret is not inherently good or bad. The outcomes of our regrets depend on how we harness them. Regrets can plunge you neck deep into depression or help you make impactful and monumental changes to your person and life. What you make of your regrets depends on what kind it is. It may be about an action, something you did, or an action, something you did not do. Here are some tips on addressing action regrets. Undo it. It may be difficult to achieve immediately, but making efforts to make amends directly after acknowledging the fault will help you live better with yourself. You can undo an action of regret in many ways. For example, you could apologize to someone you've wronged. If the fault is far behind in the past and almost irrevocable, you may counteract the wrong by paying forward with good deeds. At least you can turn your regrets into relief by inserting the at least narrative. This narrative pans out well with regrets that are almost impossible to reverse. For example, a divorced person may lament getting married in the first place but could at least the lovely children produced by the union. In the case of inaction regrets, they are mostly irreversible. You can't undo or at least something you never did. Pink offers a simple 3-step process for converting our regrets, of action and inaction, to fuel curating a better life. The consequences of your inaction can propel you to be more intentional and forthright about decisions in the future. First, acknowledge and disclose your regret, and share it with a close confidant. Next, treat yourself to self-compassion. There's always the temptation to wallow in guilt and self-pity. Resist it. Finally, distance yourself from the action or inaction that causes this feeling. In this step, you're not absolving yourself of blame but looking at the scenario surrounding the regret. Doing so will help you learn concrete lessons. Did you know? According to statistics, people are more likely to experience regrets about an unfulfilled intention than what they have done. You can preempt and anticipate your regrets. Instead of continually moping over the spilled milk of life and having to learn from events after the fact, a better way is to anticipate regrets. An excellent story illustrating the power and potential of anticipating regrets is that of the man behind the Nobel Prize. Alfred Nobel was a brilliant and dynamic mind in his days. He was a renowned chemist and inventor. However, one morning in 1888, he woke to one of the daily tabloids announcing his death with a conspicuous obituary. It was a misunderstanding. Journalists confused Alfred with his recently deceased brother Ludwig. But something about this article hit Alfred hard. Its title said, "The Merchant of Death is Dead." Alfred Nobel amassed vast wealth from his invention of explosive items and accessories. The most prominent of them was dynamite. With that rare stroke of error, Alfred could project into the future and perceive what legacy people would remember him for. When Alfred eventually died, some 8 years later, he bequeathed his entire estate to establish the organization that today awards individuals who have made outstanding contributions to humanity. The story shows that Alfred Nobel regretted how an invention he created in good faith had become a tool of mass obliteration during wars. He anticipated the future and realized he could not take back his creation but could leave a better legacy than being remembered as the Merchant of Death. Anticipating regrets causes us to think slowly and drives us to make better, more objective judgments. A way to make the best possible use of anticipated regrets is the regret minimization framework concept. Jeff Bezos adopted this concept in the 1990s to motivate himself to start Amazon. At the time, he had a well-paying banking job but predicted the massive boom of a budding technology called the Internet. So, he projected into the future and saw himself as an 80-year-old man. Thus, he aimed to make decisions that would bring him minimal regrets later in life. You can follow the same path to make better life decisions. However, note that you cannot get all your choices right. Trying to do so will leave you miserable. Conclusion. Developing emotional intelligence means learning to be aware and accepting all your emotions, not dividing them into good and bad. Conditionally negative feelings like stress and regret can be good guides for you. They are the most honest critics of your actions and decisions, so listening to them is a great idea. Multiple studies have indicated that intentionally managing these emotions can help us live better. Daniel Pink, a renowned regrets researcher, dedicated most of his academic career to studying the hows and whys of regret. The benefit of all those studies is that they let us see how much help humans can receive from correctly channeling the regret emotion. We become better people when we assess the cost implications of past decisions on our present lives. Doing this makes us adjust our lives accordingly and, sometimes, offer wise counsel to our children when we see them on similar perilous paths. Beyond looking at our past in regret and with drooping heads, we can equally anticipate regrets. Preempting the likely outcome of our actions, inactions, or decisions will cause us to reflect on them. It will adjust accordingly and tone down impending regrets. However, we must not apply it to all of our decision-making processes. Otherwise, we could become edgy through anticipated regrets, which can be counterproductive. Try this. Start a regret circle, a group of friends who occasionally share their regrets. Create a failure resume, like some LinkedIn users celebrate their failures. Study self-compassion. When celebrating new resolutions, remember to juxtapose old regrets. In all circumstances, acknowledge the at least positives. Accept that life is a dynamic journey.